Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio Network, Daily Bread. And then today we're going a little educational, both for those who want to be an interviewer as a talk show host, and also for those students and candidates who are looking for jobs and what they need to know for when they go into that all-important interview. And to back me up, to make sure you understand that I do know what I'm talking about, I also looked up some resources. And this one comes from People, Science-People. And their article is How to Be a Good Interviewer, 9 Science-Backed Tips That Top Managers Swear By. So this will help you prepare for the next time you want to, quote, distinguish yourself from the ordinary, unquote, when you go into that all-important interview at your college or university that's on the top 2 levels, because everybody else has the same degrees of a 4.0 and high school, has done tons of volunteer work or community work. So there's nothing that really can distinguish you from the person across the seat. And if you're going out for an interview with an employer, there are certain questions that they will ask you that you'll need to learn how to think on your feet, solve the problem while you're sitting there, and then they expect you to give you a full paragraph back as to why you're interested in their company. So let's get started, shall we? So one of the first things you'll learn as a talk host is that you'll need to have a list of questions. That could be a yes or no answer, because when I previously interviewed people, I would listen to what they would say. And then after we were finished explaining something, I would take my next question from them, because after all, that's what an interview show is all about. Extracting information from your guest so that not A, they can communicate what they're good at, but B, also entertain the listeners, to give them a reason not to scroll by and to stay on your website or on that particular link for more than 2.5 seconds. That's how it's determined whether or not people are interested in your videos, for example, when you post them on TikTok. Been getting a lot of lessons about that. So apparently most managers who do interview believe that they can spot their talent through their gut instinct and casual conversation. However, the research that has been done into this says that not having a structured interview is hazardous to one's health. It is catch as catch can. So the difference is when you're being interviewed, you want to make sure that they're picking up on your important thoughts and feelings, and not so much your charismatic personality draws them in. And also you need something to back up your experience with. It's a method. So learning how to be a person, whether you're giving an interview or receiving an interview, takes preparation, structure, and a genuine human connection. So why is it so important to conduct effective interviews? Well, look at it this way. A bad hire costs an average of $14,900, while losing a good employee costs nearly $30,000. However, the damage is compounded. For example, when Virgin Media analyzed their hiring process, they discovered something alarming. Rejected candidates who had poor interview experience were canceling their subscriptions, which means that if you earn your revenue through interviews that you give either by yourself as a solo practitioner or through a company, for example, like an internet talk radio station or even if you're a company spokesperson who's interviewed people, you're losing potential clients to come into your radio station, into that college, and worse, a potential employee that may have been a good fit for the company. This interview process shapes how every candidate perceives your company. And a good interviewer protects both the hire, H-I-R-E, not H-I-G-H-E-R, quality, and the employer brand. So what makes up a good interview? Well, they share common elements. First, they feel like genuine conversations while maintaining a consistent evaluation criteria. In simple words, it means that they're paying attention to what you say and they're making the judgment of whether or not you'll fit in with their corporate culture, get along with the other employees, and not make waves. They leave candidates, even rejected ones, feeling respected and fairly assessed, which means that maybe you didn't get into Harvard, Yale, or Princeton, but you're leaving a good, positive impression behind on that interviewer. And if you flip it the other way, the interviewer has left a positive and respectful feeling with you. So instead of telling people, don't bother trying to even go there, tell them, I didn't succeed. But if you do your research and your homework before you get there, you might get through their gatekeeper. And that's what colleges and corporations want to hear. Everybody has a good, respectful, positive feeling, and the communication lines remain open. Now, the science behind effective interviewing extends beyond just the hiring. Research on cognitive interview techniques shows that a structured questioning methods dramatically improve eyewitness testimony accuracy. And the same principle applies for open-ended questions, allowing for pauses for reflection and building rapport before diving into specifics. And it will yield better information. One interview that I went on was that the CEO sat down with me and said, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want you to answer immediately. I want you to have an introduction, a body, supporting material, and an ending. So I sat there for 2 or 3 minutes processing what he just told me he wanted. He asked me the question. I thought about it. I returned the answer. I was overqualified. And you're saying, oh, bad luck. Not for me. He wrote out a recommendation for me on the spot and called up several of his friends in other companies, and I got a job that way. So be very aware that when you are giving an interview or you're being interviewed, that what you say is very important. And during the whole interview, you're being assessed and viewed as to whether or not you have good communication skills, whether you can stay within your boundaries and not wander off by the garden gate, that you know your sentence structure, noun, verb, sparing use of adjectives, speak clearly, speak simply, and tell them in your own words, not somebody else's, how you would handle a particular problem. In fact, in one of the movies they made based on Hornblower, that's exactly what 3 admirals asked him to do. How would he get himself out of a certain jam if he sailed the ship too close to shore and wind came up? What would he do? And even though he had the knowledge, he did not have the words to explain and show the admirals that he had the knowledge. So make sure that before you give an interview or you arrive for an interview, you come prepared and do your homework. Thank you very much for joining us. You can listen to this PWTRN Daily Bread and have a slice over at our website, passionateworldtalkradio.com. On our main page, there will be a link to click down, and you will receive a PDF of our first Passionate World Talk Radio Network newsletter that has all types of information in it, plus our upcoming shows for the week. So please go over there and take a look, and go over to our blog, passionateworldtalkradio.com/blog, listen to the audio, click on the resource link to get the whole package, and please have questions, have an idea for daily bread, then email us a slice of your bread at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com. Give us your name, email address, your phone number, and when is a good time to contact you. And don't forget to put your topic of interest in. Thank you very much and have a great evening.